join, but we can start the session. No
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Even sir, we can start.
Yeah. Acha. On behalf of our HMA CEO, Geeta Garu, today she's not feeling well as such. I have taken this convener of the HMA MSME section. I invite you all the guests today evening, and I request our Vice President, Sri Jayavant Naidu Garu, you to give a welcome address of today's webinar. Sir.
Good evening to all. On behalf of the Hyderabad Management Association, I would like to welcome the convener of this session, Rajendra Krishna Prasad Peddy. Then I would like to welcome our secretary, Chandrasekhar ji, and all other dignitaries and members who are here on the occasion, and the speaker for the day. As you are all aware, Hyderabad Management Association was started in the year 1964. It does a lot of activities in educational institutions, student development program, faculty development program, and also it does the MDP, management development programs in the corporate sector, which is headed by our secretary Chandrasekhar ji. And other than that, this is we also have our flagship annual awards function. This year, the annual awards will be sometime in the end of March, and we are also working on it, on all the scrutiny of nominations, and also look forward to some sponsorship also. And other than that, there is also a flagship program, the industry readiness program for BBA and MBA students, which is doing quite well. Of course, it's online and it has caught up a bit, and it's helping a lot of the students regarding a lot of areas like soft skills, and then other skills regarding how to face interview, how to prepare a CV and all. And of course, I won't take much time. And I welcome the speaker of the day and request Rajendra Prasad Peddy to kindly introduce and move forward. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Yeah. Respected our Vice President, HMA Vice President, Sri Jayavant Naidu Garu, our Honorable Secretary, Puchi Chandrasekhar Rao Garu, and G. Murali Krishna Raj Garu, and Praveen Puchpudi Garu, and today esteemed speaker, Dr. Sarathi Garu, ladies and gentlemen. And today, again, I welcome you all for this MSME committee organizing seminar on the Indian industry, past, present, and future by Dr. Sarathi Garu, Assistant Professor, Symbiosis, Institute of Business Management. In this webinar, we'll be discussing more on how and when industry division started in India, from the traditional family-based conventional artisan type manufacturing to mass production industry units. As you all know, the first industry division products were made mechanization process with invention of steam energy in the second industrial revolution, by electrification process and invention of electricity, and in third industrial revolution because of electronics development, and production of goods manufacturing is done by automation process. And in the fourth industrial revolution, the production process is further updated to digitalization, Internet of Technologies to meet the global standard and to be part of global supply chain. The industrial process helps to increase the country's economy, improve the quality of life of humans, and fast growth of urbanization, and reduce gaps between gender inequality and equal opportunities and rights to all humans. And a brief synopsis on the above topic is given by our guest speaker. Given the global significance of Indian economy in the years to come, it's time to invest in the learning modern Indian languages like Bengali, Gujarati, Punjabi, and Urdu. If you want to take as a country the full benefits of the trade deal that we are hoping to sign with India. This is Grace Thomas, MP in British Parliament. These words may just aptly sum up the bright future of Indian economy. It's more significant as it comes from the India's colonizer who left the country just about 75 years ago. This is a stark departure from how the world, especially the West, has seen the Indian economy. Our economic policy had been oscillating between quasi-socialistic and quasi-capitalistic nature before firmly deciding to move towards capitalism in the year 1991. After the watershed economic reforms of 1991, Indian industry that had languished under the license and permit era found new lease of life. Industrial reforms have not been persistent over the years post 1991. Successive policy framework have resulted in structural changes in the Indian industry as well as economy. These structure changes coupled with creation of a conducive ecosystem, such as thrust in building soft and hard infrastructure, public and private investment in future technologies, attempts to log into global supply chains, etc., resulted in the new Indian industry that is ready to make a global impact. The webinar, while focusing on the above mentioned changes in detail, will also deal with the implication for MSMEs. It is imperative that entrepreneurs will have to reorient themselves to the changing industrial policy, and hence the webinar will also deal with the part. Now it's my honor as a convener of MSME committee to introduce speaker to you all. Dr. Sarathi, Assistant Professor, Symbiosis Institute of Business Management, Hyderabad, received his doctorate in Business Management from Osmania University, Hyderabad. He has about 15 years of experience in corporate research and teaching. He published more than 150 case studies and 40 teaching notes to his credit, available at the thecasecenter.org. He has several research papers in Scopus listed journals. He published a book on Indian automobile industry and edited 5 case books on various industries. His research interests include the impact of digitalization and globalization on marketing, economics, and corporate strategy. He is also a resource person for management development programs, MDP, for several corporates such as L&T, TSRTC, Bayer, etc. He has also delivered guest lectures at FICCI, CISF, and other places. Now, it's my honor to, this is a brief about our guest speaker. It's my honor to welcome you, sir, to take the session forward.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So it was a very eloquent and elaborate introduction about the topic. With that sort of introduction, it is now for me to sort of meet the expectations that you have put forward in your introduction. As it is, we are late, so let's get into the topic. I'm sharing my screen for the PPT. I hope you all can see that.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Right. So, where is the starting point, or okay, so where is the starting point for the Indian industry? People generally say that we started with the Europeans coming in, but the question is, why did the Europeans come in the first place? And the general answer is they have come in for spices, which doesn't cut eyes with anyone. Because in modern Europe itself, people don't take as much spices as the Indians would do. So therefore, there is no logic behind saying that Europeans have come for the spices. So if we go back one step before to the Europeans coming into India, we have the invaders coming from the Central Asia, and we all know those stories. And the stories of the Central Asians coming in and looting gold, the temples were looted, so on and so forth. That is an indication that it was not just for spices, as we are being told. It was more to do with a lot of other goods. The Europeans came to India to cut the expensive land route, also because the kingdoms between India and Europe were taking a lot of taxes, which was increasing the cost for the Europeans. Therefore, they wanted to have a direct sea route to India. Therefore, they came. And there was this seminal book by Angus Madison. He's a professor at London School of Economics, and this is what he figured out, that the contribution of India to the global GDP at 1000 AD was 30%. I mean, there was no other country which was as rich as India, right? Even till as late as 1700, which is like 400 years in the past. Even then, we were contributing more to the world trade than the entire Europe combined. So it only proves a point that there was more to the Indian trade than just spices. So we were colonized by the British for around 250 years or so, whatever. But it is again from Angus Madison's book. He categorically proves that we were richer than Britain even in 1857. You know, before that, you go to 1600, we were 10 times as rich as the United Kingdom was. It is just to say that the India in the medieval and ancient period had much more than spices to its story. Right, and this is again a quote from Angus Madison himself, who is known to be the authority on this subject. He's an economic historian, and he says that that the industry in India under the Mughal was much more elaborate and much bigger compared to the Europeans. However, the British did not invest in the Indian industry, and therefore by the time that we emerged as an independent country, the industry was ruined. Not just investing, you know, the British have destroyed the existing industry. All right, a case in point, what we all know is that when the British have established their mechanized textile mills, you know, they have chopped the hands of Indian artisans from Bengal to Tamil Nadu. One a traveler during the time, he writes in his books that the journey between Chennai, that is the Calcutta, Madras in the yesteryears, to Kolkata, that is Calcutta back then, when he was traveling in that route, for lots and lots of area, there was white corpus, that is the bones of human beings. And when he inquired what are these bones made of, he was told that the Indian artisans who were the weavers, etc., in the entire eastern coast were murdered by the British. That was just one industry that we are talking about. Now, like this, we had iron industry, gold, as we all know, was always there, and a lot of other industries as well. All these industries were ruined. They did not invest is one way of looking at it, but the truth is they have actually ruined the existing industries. All right. Now this paragraphs tell. I mean, this table tells how the trade between India and Europe has evolved from the 16th century, early 16th century, till the late 18th century. You know, if you concentrate on the right lower table, you'll see that textiles were trading were contributing to 53% of the trade between India and Europe. And if you add silk to it, the total is around 70%, right? And then we had tea and other things as well. So the story is not limited to spices. That's the bottom line. All right. So at the independence, this is how it was. 75% of the labor force was occupied in agriculture. No surprises there, because even today, even in 2022, the Reserve Bank numbers tell us that around 46% of the labor force is still occupied in agriculture. So if you adjust that number for the seasonal employment, the number would expand till 57%. So that is more than half of the total employment generated in this country is contributed to agriculture. That's the truth. Now, at the independence, we were a village economy. We were not an urban economy. And even today, 60% or close to 60% of the population still resides in the villages. And this graph reflects the structure of the Indian economy. Services contribute to close to 60% of the total GDP, and agriculture contributes to around 17% of the GDP, and the remaining is made of industry. Now, if we take a pause here and then think about why, you can understand why industry was ruined under the British rule. There were political motives, economic motives, so on and so forth. But why is that we did not concentrate on industry after independence? It's close to 75 years now. Barely the contribution of industry increased, as this chart shows. This is from RBI, so you can't dispute the data. Barely the contribution of industry, manufacturing, has increased around 2 percentage points or 3 percentage points at the max from 1951. Okay, I have taken data for 2007, 2008 for a purpose. We'll come to it a little later. But then, even if you consider that period between 1950 and 2027, 28, sorry, 2007, 2008, which is around 57 years. Even in that 57 years, the industry just grew 3 percentage points in terms of the contribution to GDP. The story is pretty long, but then we'll sort of take a bird's eye view as to why it is so. Clearly, the 5-year plans were not focusing on industry. The first 2 5-year plans did focus on the industry, but that was to the large industries. So the other industries were not given as much importance as they should have been given. After from the third 5-year plan, the focus shifted to agriculture. Now, come 1970s, those industries which were nascent stages or which were into the private sector, not a great number of that, even though they were nationalized. We all know the story of nationalization of the banks, and this resulted in a space in manufacturing primarily monopolized by the government, which did not allow any private participation. The little bit of private participation which was there was heavily licensed, and it's a different story altogether, that you have to take licenses to start a company, to start some production, as well as there were limits on your production. So you cannot follow the demand supply dynamics, and then increase your production if need be. Even to increase your production, you should get another license, which was heavily dominated by what the government wanted at any given point of time. Now, added to that, imports were restricted. Now, imports were restricted both in terms of the finished products as well as in terms of the technology transfers. Now, we all know that the 20th century began as the American century, right? Only after 1930s and 1940s you had Japan entering into manufacturing, but the America, a lot of manufacturing was happening in America, and the Europeans have latched on to the technological developments which were happening in America, and then Europeans also sort of expanded their manufacturing base. Japan did that after 1930s and 1940s, but no country which did not get technology from the Americans couldn't develop in that period. And we leaned heavily towards Russia for some good reason. Let's not get into the politics of that, but for some good reason we leaned towards Russia. But then the technology that should have come from Russia to us did not come, and therefore for a large period till 1991, as Mr. Rajendra Prasad has alluded to, was a period that stifled any growth in the industry, right? 1991. Yeah, well, so this is a quote from Jawaharlal Nehru, which sort of summarizes how the government has looked towards private participation in the economy. He was talking to J.R.D. Tata. Right now, from there, it was Mr. P.V. Narasimha Rao who has introduced the doctrine of 1991, very famously liberalizing, privatizing, and investing in global companies. And IBM has actually started its operations in India in 1970s, right? And it was after the government wanted to have the technology and wanted to have the control over the private establishments, if not directly to the government, but at least the control should be with the Indian nationalists. That was the line that the government has taken, or that was the decision that the government has taken. And IBM left India by late 1970s. So did Coca-Cola. Now, I always wonder how Indian, at least in computer sciences, digital and internet related sectors, how India would have been if IBM was allowed to operate in India from 1970s. You know, whatever could have happened in India did not happen. IBM incidentally figured that whatever it could gain from India, it can also gain from the Chinese economy. Now, it's a coincidence of sorts, and not a very good coincidence of sorts, that the first liberalization, the first wave of liberalization happened in China in 1979, and that was the very time, or that was the very period when India was driving out the global companies. So the long story short is that there is, we can say that there is a high probability that the Indian industry would have developed the way Chinese industry would have developed if the government did not drive out the foreign companies. So did we lose time? Yes, we did lose time, because by 1990, China has emerged as the production hub, or the quote unquote the factory of the world. Right, but from 1979 till 1990, China has already finished two waves of liberalization drive, and we started our first wave of liberalization in 1991. Did it happen the way it should have happened? Well, with the 25-year data, one can argue that it did not, or at least one can say that much should have been done in privatizing the economy. Right, banking industry is a case in point. Now think of this: most of your economy is privatized, but banks are controlled by the government. Right, the share of private banks in India is around 30%. So 70% of the banking system is still controlled by the government. Now, how does it work out? It beats my understanding that when a private company wants capital, right, they approach the banking, which is 70% controlled by the government. And these private banks would want, or private industries would want capital at the earliest. Government banks cannot take the decision. How does it work? It doesn't. And therefore, we see some companies having very, very problematic financial situation. MSMEs, as we know, as we talk, are reeling under financial distress. One of the reasons for that is MSMEs cannot provide the collateral that the government banks want them to provide, which is changing. We'll come to that a little later. But then the point is, banking system alone would tell you that we did globalize or we did privatize, but we should have done a lot more. Right? Anyway, so global companies started operating in India, and delicensing happened. So on and so forth. Imports also improved, etc. But we need to understand that India missed, famously, as Shashi Tharoor would have put it, India missed the bus of manufacturing. One, in the early 20th century, when manufacturing itself was developing across the Northern America and Europe and parts of Asia, like Japan, we were not allowed by the British. And in the late 70s and 80s, when the world moved towards offshoring, or when the world moved towards seeking production facilities in developing nations, we missed the bus again, because we married ourselves to socialism so strongly that we never thought of investing in the industry. And therefore, even today, you don't see much of the production happening in India, because the systems that were set in during 1970s and 1980s are still operating. By that, for instance, let's take the production of silicon chips. Those systems were developed in 1970s and 1980s, and come 1990s, the production facilities have already started in China. So now you can't, because you missed that time, you can't now ask the producers of silicon chips to come and operate in India, because you did not develop the ecosystem which is necessary. Right? Manufacturing cannot happen in isolation. Manufacturing requires a great deal of ecosystem development. For instance, there are a lot of examples that we can take, but two examples. One is, we don't have a matured chemical industry operating in India. Right? Now, what is the result of it? We are good in producing drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, but we import most of our APIs, active pharma ingredients. right? We import a lot of chemicals which are necessary for producing drugs, right? And we have seen how it worked out when China stopped its exports, not deliberately, but during after the COVID, China couldn't export APIs, and our pharmaceutical industry, which is one of the brilliant industries that is operating out of India, has suffered, right? And one more example, what baffles me is, we have the stone flooring, right? The raw material for that stone flooring we export to China, and we import. There are a lot of quarries in South India, in Telangana, Andhra, and Tamil Nadu. A lot of quarries are there. They take the stone out, and this stone is transported to China. Chinese do that processing, whatever has to be processed, and we import the finished product from China. It is more like the British have asked us to export cotton and indigo to their companies back in London and the other places, and they have forced the finished product on us at a higher cost. Right now, we are willingly doing the same thing in stone quarrying industry. We have good mines, but we don't have the production facilities. Now, why do we don't have the production facilities? It's simple. You do not have an industry which can produce capital goods. You do not have an industry which can produce the equipment which is necessary to polish the stones or to do the processing of the stones. So therefore, one, we started our privatization late. Two, half-baked. We did not do it or we did not do it to the extent that it was necessary. And three, because we did not do it to the extent that was necessary, we did not develop, or we don't have the ecosystem which is necessary to support manufacturing in this country. So that is where we are today in terms of manufacturing. I'm going at a great speed, not getting into the details of things because of paucity of time. In case if there are any questions, please feel free to raise your hand. All right. So even the subsequent governments have done, but the focus was more on infrastructure creation. It started off with the golden quadrangle of the Vajpayee government, followed by the 10 years of Manmohan Singh government, and the following government of the Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Modi. It has taken it to a different league altogether. Now, we did focus on infrastructure, and we see the results today. And then we did focus on digitalization. In 1990s, our technology entrepreneurs, the TCS and Wipros and whatever companies that you can think of, they were lucky because that was the time that the economy has privatized, and that was the time that software industry was growing. So, today India produces software to the world. If India doesn't produce software, world cannot run. I mean, this is not an exaggerated statement. This could have happened with manufacturing as well if we did not delay our privatization in 70s and 80s. So software industry is a bright example to tell what is the potential of this country, provided one industry was put in the global map at the right time. Right? We started globalizing in early 1990s. The software development sort of got fire in 1990s, and then India emerged as the dominant software provider to the world. Of course, we don't have the software products. Of course, we don't have the companies which are into software consulting. We are doing support activity to the American software giants, of course. But the point is, software as an industry gives you the idea into the potential of Indian engineering capabilities, provided there was adequate policy framework, there was adequate government support, so to say. All right. So the point is, manufacturing was never given adequate importance. So and the result is, before 2020, for 50 years, we were growing very, very slowly. What is that word which is used? It was the growth rate of 3.5–4% was called as the Hindu growth rate by the global economists. And after 2020, we grew at 7.5%. Of course, this is the period when China was growing in double digits, but nonetheless, at 7.5% for a period of 17 years, we catapulted the entire economy into the big leagues. We currently are the fifth largest economy. And after the pandemic, we have increased that growth. We are growing at 8.5% after 2021, after the unlocking of 2021, right? And this is a very good time to be in India if you are an entrepreneur. Why? We'll see. Of course, so this is what I was saying. I've taken that data till 2007, 2008 in the previous graph from 1950 to 2007, 2008 to tell the contribution of each sector. That was because you see, though we grew at 7.5% in the 17 years before 2020, that is from 2004, our growth rate was 7.5%. But still, you look at these contributions of different sectors. That contribution itself is still more or less the same. Services are contributing 55%, close to 55% of the GDP. Agriculture is languishing at 15, 16, 17%, right? Manufacturing at 17 to 20%. Now, the point is that in the 17 years of 7.5% growth rate, right, the contributions to GDP did not change, right? It is still the same. Majority is contributed by services, manufacturing and agriculture are languishing. Now, this tells a story to an economist. The story is very simple. Unless you don't grow manufacturing, you cannot grow the economy. Right? For 17 years, the economy has grown at 7.5%, but the sector-wise contributions have not changed. What it tells is that we have peaked out in those contribution percentages. In other words, if you cannot give impetus to manufacturing, economic growth overall, GDP growth overall will not happen. As simple as that. Right? So what do? We need to produce to the world. We have to produce to the world. We are blessed with fantastic domestic demand, and that is one reason why, even after pandemic, even after the entire world has come to a standstill in 2020 and parts of 2021, we did not take the brunt of that economic stoppage. That is just because our domestic demand is very strong, and our economy grows because of the domestic demand. Contribution to the growth of GDP by domestic consumption is close to 60%. 60%, and it is not going to change in the near future. Therefore, you do have a solid domestic consumption. You need to produce to your own people. However, you have to produce to the world if you want to grow at 7.5%, 8% for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Right? We are somewhere around the 3 trillion mark in terms of the total GDP. The government's goal was to become 5 trillion by 2025, was it, or 2026? Even if you want to become 5 trillion by 2026, 27, you need to grow at 8% from now. And the government has already started speaking in the language of $30 trillion by 2047, which is like another 23, 24 years from now. So if you want to have a $30 trillion economy by, okay, let's take another 30 years, right? So I'm not even speaking in terms of 2047. I'm speaking in terms of 2052 and 2053. Even if I give myself a 30-year window to grow 10 times, that is from 3 trillion to 30 trillion, I need to grow at a compound of 8% at least, which means the GDP growth should be 8%, which means you need to produce, you need to sell to the world. The domestic demand cannot do it. Are we in the path? We'll see in a couple of minutes, but before that, these are the sectors of Indian manufacturing. Automobiles and auto components take a major chunk of it, followed by capital goods, chemicals, defense, electronics, so on and so forth. Construction contributes to 9% of GDP, but then construction is considered to be a service in India. That is how it is accounted for. There is a Delhi High Court ruling in that I think 1986, when there was a case between the government and a private party. The Delhi High Court ruled that construction cannot be considered as manufacturing; it should be considered as service. They have their own definitions for that. Since then, we are considering construction to be service. But then, for easy reference, I put construction in manufacturing itself, right? And then food processing is one industry which we have to look, because we have very nascent food processing industry, and when the economy goes, when the incomes of the people increase, there will be a lot of demand for processed food. So there will be a growth in food processing also. which is currently contributing to 1.5% to the GDP, which is projected to grow in double digits in the next 10, 12 years to come. What that means is there will be a lot of activity in this food processing space. We already know that the government of Telangana has identified, I think, 4 food processing zones in different districts. And there is also work going on in that area in different states. UP has taken it up, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, etc. So we'll see food processing, but then food processing is technically part of agriculture. Medical devices is one more area that we have to look forward to for 2 reasons. One is for this population size, we need to have our own medical devices industry, which doesn't exist as of today. And the second reason is when manufacturing of these devices has to happen in a scale by the companies which are into this R&D of research and development of medical devices. When they have to produce at scale, they have to think in terms of either India or China. And it's very difficult for any industry to go to China in the changed dimensions, in the changed geopolitics, in the changed economic considerations, so on and so forth. So they will be coming to India. And government of Telangana has already identified one medical device park in a place by name Zahirabad. And you know, this industry is going to sort of explode in the next 4 or 5 years to come. Pharmaceuticals, anyway, we are doing good. We are the vaccination capital for the world, and in other pharma ingredients also we are doing good. But there is a lot of scope for this industry also, provided we have 1, infrastructure, and 2, the government support and the adequate research spending in this arena. So is the case with textiles. Textiles, we were the leaders at one point. Now we lost that leadership position to Bangladesh, to Sri Lanka, to some other South Asian nations. Reasons, plenty of reasons, but we still are the 2nd largest producer of cotton, which means if there is adequate focus on textile manufacturing in this country, we can again become number 1 in that area. So basically, these are this 12 industries, 12 sectors in the Indian manufacturing. Okay, somebody asked a question about pharma and chemical. Okay. Pharma industry and chemical industry are 2 different things, right? So pharma industry takes inputs from the chemical industry. So the supplies or the raw material for pharma industry comes from the chemical industry. So both of them are into chemical molecules and all that, but then distinct. They're 2 distinct industries. I hope I answered this question.
Yeah, fine, sir. Yeah.
Right. So in the recent years, the economists will tell you crisis is a great opportunity. If you have
earlier slide, you are mentioning defense.
Sorry?
Earlier slide, defense manufacturing.
Yeah.
Could you highlight on that?
Yeah. Here it is. Okay, so I thought of taking up defense in the next slides, but then
okay,
because you asked about this, in the recently concluded air show in Bangalore, there were countries which were showing interest to buy the Indian manufactured fighter jet.
Okay.
There is an interest. All right. We are already selling missiles. Akash is being exported. In the 26th January parade, for the first time in 75, 76 years of Indian independence, we did not use any ammunition in the parade which is produced outside of India. The only exception was the helicopters used and the fighter jets that were being used. Right, most of it is produced in India. Right. We have invited three Russian companies to start their production in India, and the work is going on. Right, it is matter of time when we start selling arms and ammunitions to other countries. Already in Uttar Pradesh, a big defense corridor is announced, and the production will happen in the next 2-3 years. Right, and day before yesterday, the Prime Minister speaking in Karnataka, I think it was in Shimoga, that he said the day is not far when we'll have our own commercial aircraft.
Great.
Right. So why I'm talking about commercial aircraft here is because once you invest in defense, right, the linkages, the forward linkages from defense to other industries, the prime suspect would be commercial aviation, would be immense. All right, we'll come to that a little later.
Okay, okay, sir. Okay, fine. Yeah.
Right. So here we are. In the last 6-7 years, we have done 2-3 things which would change the economy fundamentally. One, of course, is the GST code, which is one nation, one tax, and the other is bankruptcy. The other is reduction of corporate tax. We are at 29% currently, but we still are one of the highest tax nations. But still, these three things have freed up a lot of space for the private players. First, GST. You don't have to. I mean, people talk about the necessity of providing a lot of documents to a lot of states in the previous regime, and now that time is freed up. Now you don't have to pay octroi to different states. Now you don't have to remember the different tax structures in different states, so on and so forth. The unintended, maybe intended, but the not so much talked about consequence of GST is this. Imagine you are taking a truckload of some goods from, let's say, Patiala. Patiala is the auto component manufacturing zone. So let's say from Patiala to Sriperumbudur, it's like crossing the entire country. Previously, what used to happen is this truck should stop at every state border. So as much as the truck was in movement, the truck was halting at the state borders. Those long queues and 2-3 kilometer queues and stuff like that. Right? So only with implementation of GST. One research has already figured out that the time taken from Coimbatore to Chandigarh is reduced by half. So what used to take around 14 days, 12 to 14 days before GST is now happening in 5 to 6 days. Right? Now, there are two consequences of this. One, of course, you get goods on the right time. That will have improve your production, so on and so forth. The other is lots of working capital requirement would be reduced for both producers and the transportation companies. Right? That saving in working capital would result in efficiencies for both transporters and manufacturers.
Inventory,
Right?
inventory holding. Yeah.
So those consequences we would have seen, but for pandemic. Right? So that's how GST is helping. And I'm not getting into the detail of how retailers are being helped and so on and so forth. So and then the insolvency bankruptcy code. Now, see, one of the fundamentals of capitalism is what Joseph Stiglitz called in 1930s, 1934 to be precise. He called it constructive destruction, creative destruction to be precise. What it means is, in the process of figuring efficiencies, increasing efficiencies, right? Companies continuously innovate. And when they innovate, the new system will have to come in the place of the old system. So the new system will be killing the old system. Creative destruction. In this process, it is bound to happen that some companies are going to go bankrupt. One example is today, who is using a camera with a reel? We are all using. Who's using a camera? We are all using mobile phones, right? But the output did not change. In fact, it has become better, right? So
yeah.
The digital photography has killed the traditional photography. Canon, which used to be one of the large companies in even till 2005, 2004, 2005 period, today you don't see Canon billboard, right? So you replaced a new system with the old system. In the process, one big company has been shut down, right? So it happens in every industry. Now, if that is what is the bedrock of capitalism, you can't even imagine how an economy would function without allowing companies to go bankrupt. It's a different debate that the companies which have gone bankrupt in India are not in search of efficiency, but because of other practices. We'll not get into that. The point that I want to make here is that you should have created bankruptcy code in 1990s itself.
Yeah.
Right? Which was in the making for a long period. Right? Eventually in 2016 implemented, and the result of this is the improved banking health. Think of this. Anil Ambani and Anil Ambani's companies going through IBC, right? Just one example I'm giving. You can understand the examples, other examples, right? So what happened with IBC is that the non-performing assets of the banks have tremendously reduced. So this is one of the most important structural change that we have undergone, along with GST, right? And the result of this, or maybe a coincidence, we'll come to know only after 2-3 years from now, because we do a lot of research on historical data. Maybe a result, maybe a coincidence, maybe a result of increased banking health is that investment cycle has begun in this country. The last investment cycle started around 2004, 2005, 2006, lasted till 2012, 2013, 2014. So that 10-year investment cycle has resulted in 7.5% growth rate that we were talking about, right? So this another investment cycle has just begun in 2020, 2021. This, as of now, is not at its peak. Investment cycles typically will take 2-3 years to peak. So probably around 2025, 2026, we'll reach the peak of this current investment cycle, which is a good thing. So in the last 3 quarters, consistently the private investment has grown. In the last quarter, it is around 34%, which is the largest from 2016 or so for one quarter. Right now, these are 3 things or 4 things that have happened simultaneously. We have to put this thing in a context. The context is the COVID stoppage, blockage, lockdown, whatever name you want to give, right? When the entire world is looking at recession, right? Only 2 countries, large economies, only 2 large economies are healthy: China and India. China would be growing, but not at 5%, 6% as it used to, right? It would be growing at 1.5%, 2%, right? India is expected to grow at 8% consistently, at least till 2027. That is another 4 years, right? This 8.5% growth rate cannot be sustained in the next 2-3 years, but it would be the average would be around 7.5%. Even World Bank has acknowledged, all the consulting houses across the globe, all the think tanks across the globe, all the economists across the globe have acknowledged and alluded to this fact. Right now, what happened in India, that the Indian GDP is increasing while the GDP of other nations is contracting. More than 3 reasons for this, more than 3 reasons for this, but 2 reasons very quickly. One, as we already discussed, we are a domestic consumption economy, right? So even when we are unable to export to the other parts of the globe because of our domestic consumption, the economy did not crumble. That's 1. 2, most important, when the world has come to a standstill in the middle of 2020, all the economies have treated this as a demand problem, right? So in 2020, if you remember, every day in the newspaper we'd be going through news that Americans are printing money and distributing money reaching the bank accounts of the American citizens, right? The same thing other economies also did, right? India did not look at this as a demand crisis. India looked at it as a supply crisis. So we have taken a completely different approach to this. In 2020, I also published papers arguing that it is a demand crisis and we should take lessons from America, start printing money and distributing money to the citizens. Thankfully, I'm wrong. Thankfully, what the Indian government has done is that they started providing capital to the manufacturers. PLI scheme was introduced, right? MSMEs were given collateral-free loans, right? And for around a year or so, government has taken up the responsibility of paying the PF amount of the people working in MSMEs, right? So like this, there are an array of functions that the government has done to boost supply side dynamics. And the result is that America is looking at probably the worst inflation in the last 50 years, right? That is the story across the globe, right? In India also we have inflation, but it is in manageable limits. The highest inflation that we have seen is 7.5%, right? If, unfortunately, if I were to be true, and the government has distributed money to citizens in 2020, right? The inflation today would have stood at 30-40%. And that should have been the end of the economy, so to say, right? So this is one good thing that has happened because of COVID. Now, before taking these two questions, what happened because of that is a lot of encouragement was given. I'm using the word encouragement very responsibly. A lot of encouragement is given to sectors like silicon chips. You see, today in India, at least 3 companies are talking in terms of producing silicon chips: Tata, Vedanta, Adani, and these 3 are, they have said, but the others are also thinking in those terms, right? So, like that, there are other industries as well, which automobile industry, for example. Indian automobile companies are not able to meet the demand, even though they received PLI, and hardly any other country can boast of this, that its automobile industry is failing to meet the demand, right? So thankfully, lot of bottlenecks in the supply side have been addressed during the crisis. We will be looking at the impact, the positive impact of these in the next 2-3 years, right? PLI is just one example. There are a lot of other things that are happening, and we already discussed about the necessity of an ecosystem, right, for manufacturing to happen, right? So the steps have been taken to create that ecosystem. It takes time, but when it happens, manufacturing will increase. Okay. So let's take these 2 questions. First question is,
I think at the end of the session, you can take it, sir. I think it's over and one somewhat. Yeah.
I think it is good to answer here itself, sir.
I see.
End of it will be a lot of questions. Okay. So there is one question: can India's share of manufacturing increase without our competitiveness getting ahead of other countries, China and Vietnam? No, that cannot happen. And therefore, government is doing. This is from Murali Krishna Raju. So therefore, the government is taking steps to increase the competitiveness of manufacturing. Like I said, we cannot look at manufacturing in isolation. There should be integration among different sectors. There should be 2-3 in the basic industry that should mature before we even think in terms of of mass manufacturing. One such industry is chemical industry. Without investing in chemical industry, you cannot think in terms of increasing capacity in other industries. That doesn't happen. Right. So anyway, the government is taking steps towards that. Okay. Another question is back to nationalization, achieving agriculture. It have the purpose of the time.
Yeah, I think we'll take care, sir. I'll take care of it.
Yeah. I kind of agree and disagree with that statement. If we enter into that debate, that's going to take a lot of time. So for the paucity of time, let us say this much, that when you were giving or focusing on agriculture, you should have focused on manufacturing as well. So what you should have done is by after nationalizing the banks, the way you have given credit to agriculture, you should have given credit to the industry as well. I know this is not, because we'll take a lot of time if we get into the details of it, but then this is my argument. Right. So another structural change is the digital stack. Right. It's very easy now. You go buy vegetables and pay with your phone. So it has three layers or three components integrated and working seamlessly. If you type the mobile number of a particular person, right, his name should come. Only then you're going to make the payment. Otherwise, you'll not make the payment, right? So that right? That's called the authentication. So you scan, you should get the name, or you enter the mobile number, you should get the name, or the vice versa also. You give the UDI username, you should get the mobile number, so on and so forth. So that's one. Payment integration between the banks, integration of national banking as national payment mechanism, and the data. No, all these things work together seamlessly for us to pay using our mobile phones. Now, this might look very natural to us, but this is a technology that 16 countries have expressed their interest to take this technology. 16 countries, 16, and all the 16 are not underdeveloped or developing nations. There were developing nations as well. In the United States, you don't have this kind of payment system. So what it does is if you're into manufacturing, you'll get to know this. You don't have to wait 2-3 days to receive your payments. That's a big advantage. Second, if you're a small manufacturer, you go to the bank will ask for a collateral. Today, if you have this payment system with you, you are making all these transactions digitally. Those digital transactions can act as collateral. That is a guarantee that you're giving to the bank that this is my level of operations. I'll be requiring this capital, right? So the bank will take sorry, the bank will develop confidence in you if you're a small manufacturer, and then they'll advance a loan to you without any other collateral. Now, this is a real game changer for micro entrepreneurs, right? Government has already given the instruction to the banks to take the digital payment into account and then advance loans to entrepreneurs. IDFC is doing it. The others also will. Very sooner than later. The third consequence of this digital payment stack is that today, especially the digital entrepreneurs, right? So they can use this infrastructure, digital infrastructure, and they can build their companies above this digital infrastructure, right? So you will be like Paytm. Paytm could not have been possible without this digital stack, right? So you will find a lot of other entrepreneurs as well in insurance, in a lot of other financial aspects. So this is going to give a lot of fillip to the MSMEs going forward. Right. So we already discussed about GST. Physical infrastructure is one area that the government is focusing on a lot, which is necessary to the economy of this size. When I say economy of this size, I am not necessarily taking into account the currency value of the economy, also called as GDP. No, I'm not taking into account of that. What I mean by the economy of this size is the number of consumers, the geographical spread of consumers, right? Close to 1.5 billion, and 60% in the villages, right? So how do you serve this economy? You need to have the physical infrastructure, which we should have developed long ago. And we grew up reading the stories about China, how good Chinese infrastructure is, and before that, how good Japanese infrastructure is, and the Americans, the Europeans, even the Middle East nations, small little nations in the Middle East, even their physical infrastructure is better than ours, right? Even today, even after so much expenditure on infrastructure, right? Access control highways. Malaysia has higher numbers than India. Access control highways. How big is Malaysia? Right? So there is a lot of scope for development in this area. And we already discussed that GST has reduced the transportation time by half on an average, right? With this infrastructure coming into place, that will be further reduced, which means that will be further helping the producers and the transporters, right? If I can take 2 minutes.
Yes.
The three states in this country, very populous states, and once upon a time very rich states. Bengal, Bihar, and Uttar Pradesh. These three states, right? You read history, the powerful kings and kingdoms have come from this part of the country, the Gangetic Plains, right? Before the British have come, they used to use Ganges and its tributaries for transportation. Calcutta became the biggest port only on the strength of inland water body transportation. British came, British said, okay, this is not how things work. We'll lay roads, right? So they sort of killed that inland waterways transportation. After independence, governments did not give adequate importance to development of either inland water transportation or physical road and railway transportation. The result of this is close to 40 crore people residing in these three states. 40 crore people. are cut off from the mainstream industry. Right? Once you develop this infrastructure, this 40 crore people will join the mainstream consumption. Right? Especially Bengal. So this is going
Bihar
to
also.
dramatically
also.
change how business happens in India. Right? So currently 25%, 28% of total freight is happening through railway freight corridors. Government wants to take it to 35% by 2025 and eventually increase it to 50%. Anyone in the manufacturing would know that railway transportation is cheapest. The economics will work out even compared to road for transportation. Right? Today, 60% of the cargo moves through road. This has to come down. Then the money involved in transportation will be freed up for production. Also time. Right? So this is what I'm saying. Look at the railway track length and the road kilometer length. We lag Japan and Korea. Think of this. How big is Japan and how big is Korea? Probably both these countries would be fitting into Tamil Nadu and Karnataka put together, or maybe they'll fall short. But they have 4 times more roads compared to India, both these. So yeah, there is a lot to be done in this arena. The government is doing it. So yeah, John F. Kennedy, long ago, when he was the president, unfortunately he was assassinated. He said the American roads are not good because America is rich. America is rich, on the contrary, because of the good American roads. This is a simple transportation economics. Right? So what is driving this nation? Of course, demographic dividend. A lot of people will talk about it. I'll just give you one number. Our median age is still 28. 28, right? So at least for the next 3 generations, we'll not become old. Right? And India will have a distinction by 2040, 2045. All of us will be around that time, and we'll discuss that once again. 2040, 2045, right? India will be the first nation to become rich before it gets old. Let me repeat. India will be the first nation to become rich before it gets old. All the rich nations today have become rich after they became old. So that is the power of the demographic dividend if used properly. Right? And we are not an economy which is dependent on one class of products or one category of products. Our base of production is phenomenal. We produce everything from tomato to the microchips. We'll be producing microchips in the next 2-3 years. So there are a lot of products in between. Now, what happens is, even if one sector is having a headwind, even if there is a crisis in one industry, the other industries will remain intact. Therefore, the country itself will remain intact. Right? Look at Britain. Britain is looking at a bleak economic future because its economy was dependent on banking and financial services, right? And they have lost the competitive advantage that they have had in banking and financial services. Right, so we will not have that problem. Right, so we also already discussed about domestic demand. Banks need to be privatized because the data shows that 30% of the deposits and 70% of the loans in the last 5 years have come from private banks. That only underlines the importance of private banks. Right. So all these things will help the next generation entrepreneurs to research, develop, design, and produce. All these four happening in the country. What that means is that products will be produced on the basis of what is important for India. Not as the way it is happening today. Products are designed, developed in some other countries, and in some cases they're also manufactured in some other countries. We'll be the users. Right? We hardly have any product in the modern world which is designed for the Indians. We don't have. So the next generation of entrepreneurs will start thinking in these lines, will start developing products in these lines.
Yeah.
All right. So this is not to say that we don't have challenges. We do have challenges. Inflation is a big challenge. How do you deal? Inflation is a short-term phenomenon, but the impact, the negative consequences of inflation would be devastating to the economy. So one of the consequences that I've given here, in the last 1.5 years, rupee has depreciated 10% compared to the dollar. That is huge. Because of that, our external payments have been distorted. So how are you going to deal with this? Any further depreciation in rupee would only impact the external payment issues very, very negatively. Right? So how are you going to deal with that? And then, of course, because of the inflation, global economy is looking at potential recession in 2023, which would last till the end of 2024. So it will be only 2025 that the world will look towards better economic conditions. So in the next 2 years, how you're going to deal with the global inflation, right? We know what happened when Russia invaded Ukraine. Of course, this is not the Indian line, the official Indian line that the Russians have invaded the Ukrainians. I take that liberty in saying so. So please don't sue me. Right? So there is a political unrest in the world, and because of that, we are looking at an oil bill, which, if not handled properly, can double the inflation numbers in a very short time. Right? So that will be a challenge. Short term, mind you, this is not a long-term challenge. Short term, but still, it is a significant challenge. Right? Because in 2020 and 2021, the government has recognized that this problem is a supply side problem and started funding to ease out the supply chains. Right? Our fiscal deficit is beyond the agreeable limit. What it means is, in the short term, at least in the next 2-3 years, or maybe in 4 years, will not be in a position, the government will not be in a position to support the economy the way it is supporting currently. So it's a good thing that the private investment has already started in the positive direction. If the private investment doesn't happen the way it should happen, then yeah, we are looking at a problem, investment problem, right? Okay, you talk to any investor as far as manufacturing is concerned in India, their first concern will be land, right? Ratan Tata couldn't work around that problem.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who else can work around that problem. Right? Very, very urgent. We need to rework our land acquisition code. It's a big question if there is a political will on that arena. We know what happened with the much needed farm laws. So we have to wait and watch. Right? As much as it is a blessing, the demographic dividend, it is also a problem currently. 20 lakh aspirants, job aspirants join the job market every year. Right? I'm not even finishing that statement. We don't have those many jobs. Out of this 20 million people who are attaining that working age, a paltry 10% have the skills necessary for the corporate world. What do you do with this 90%? Right? Even those 10% who have the necessary skills, even those 10% who have the necessary skills do not have jobs. Right? The long list of the Indians seeking American passport, American visas or Canadian visas, or even the Middle East nation visas is only increasing because we are not able to show them jobs to their skill set. This is a ticking time bomb. If not addressed properly, all bets are off. If this employment problem is not addressed properly, there is no discussion on any other thing. Right? Things don't take too much of a time to gather momentum, to gather pace. Right? Now, 45% of the workforce is still in agriculture, and 10% of the total workforce is working in a company with more than 20 employees. You can understand the size, right? And therefore, you have a lot of workforce in informal sector, informal economy. This is a problem that needs to be solved very quickly. Right? And the large workforce is in the family enterprises. Right? Now, these challenges apart, the OECD, it's an organization of the rich countries, so to say, they are projecting India to grow at an average of 6 to 6.5% by 2030, and after that, from 2030 to 2050, we'll be growing at 4.5%, right? Which will be highest in the world. So we will be growing much faster compared to the total world or any other large economy. What will be the result of this? this will be the result. We are projected to become a $45 trillion economy by 2050. Remember, I was talking about $30 trillion by 2050. But we are projected to grow, we are projected to reach $50 trillion by 2050. Which is what? 13 times more. We are $3 trillion economy today.
Yeah.
Right? We have seen in the first slide that we were contributing to 30% of the global GDP at some point. Right? If you remember, Angus Madison, the first slide, the very first slide, right? In our lifetime, we will reach that stage. We will be contributing to more than 25% by 2055, 2060. For this to happen, manufacturing has to grow. There is no other alternative. And grow it will. Ladies and gentlemen, I leave you at this. We were the largest contributor to the world economy. We will become the largest contributor to the world economy once again. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarthi garu. Excellent presentation. And it's like a story-like thing you've given us, a picture about what's the before independence and after independence, how our economy and industrial growth is happening. It's excellent. And I think there are any questions from this audience, they can open themselves and they can ask it.
Okay, so there are 2-3 questions. One is from Mr. Shekhar. He's saying true caller facility is dangerous. Yes. Of course, any technology is dangerous. It all depends on how you use it.
Yeah.
So nothing can be black or white. It all depends on how people are going to use it. Why true caller? The very concept of digital payments can be used against the individuals. There is a district by name, not able to recollect the name.
Sir, I think in the Chakwas we have a lot of
Tamara or some district in Uttar Pradesh and the surrounding district, 2-3 districts. The job of the people in these 2-3 districts is to hack bank accounts.
Jamtara, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Jamtara. Thank you. Jamtara. It is the job for the individuals. Think of it. There is a proper training given to the boys who are reaching 13-14 years. Proper training, proper skill set. And 2-3 districts around Jamtara, the vocation is that. So yeah, agreed. Any technology is dangerous if it is not used properly.
Sir, I'm GMK Raju again. I just want to ask one question. See, the thing is, in India, the problem is a political will. There must be a consensus for all this to happen, because otherwise you get stuck. So let's take the example of the land reforms itself, how it got stuck.
I have a different take on this. See, because you take time, whatever you do properly.
No. Actually, the recent Amar Raja battery is shifted Tirupati to somewhere again in Hyderabad. Already established unit, So they have some political bill is not there, something. They shifted from Tirupati, and then they're searching for a place, and somewhere in Telangana they got a place, and then they're establishing it. It's a really, it's happening. It's a good industry, doing well. But these are certain things, should have certain land acquisition or land setting or what exactly, I don't know. We should streamline that particularly.
Yeah, so that this is the living reality of our nation. If Ratan Tata couldn't handle it,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else can handle it. But to answer Murali sir's question, because we discuss a lot, whatever we do properly. Today you might have a situation where the draft of the agricultural laws have not passed. But think of it, if there is one more iteration to that, covering all the loopholes, whatever the doubts that we have had,
You'll probably go through easy next round.
Exactly. That's what I am saying. I do get your point that we take a lot of time and it's not easy for things to happen in India. But whatever happens properly.
The thing is that the Indian system, the leakages have to be reduced. We have too much of leakages. And I don't want to elaborate on it, but I think
it is
input and output, there's always a poor ratio.
Yeah, it is what I would say as growth fangs of any economy. You cannot. I know where you're coming from. I can be a little liberal than you.
Sir, Sarathi garu,
Corruption is a problem, and corruption is a problem for every growing economy. You cannot
Sarathi garu,
work around it.
So these are the 9, sir, please.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
Sarathi garu,
Yes, sir.
I'll request our Honorable Secretary Kuch Chandrasekhar garu to give you the closing remarks and a formal vote of thanks, sir. Now time is running short, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Dr. Sarathi garu. In fact, normally we start this session around 6:30 and close it by 8:15. That's our normal sessions. And of course, it's not the question of time. When you start listening to you, it can go on for another 1 more hour also. Like you as I rightly mentioned, it depends on the priority of each government. I put it, credit goes to the P.V. Narasimha Rao and Manmohan Singh to begin with for India. These two are not there. Let's not talk about this BJP, EJP and all that out. But when you said we should encourage more of water travel compared to a road. But the downside of it is, why there is more cheaper and is more expensive, there's a direct impact on your automobile industry and the ancillaries. And that may result in a lot of unemployment as well. So what India really should for a line balancing, we call it in the factories. No factory line balance, we call it in the manufacturing process. In the same way, somewhere they have to bring out kind of a balance between this in terms of logistics, both water as well as the road, this one. No doubt, infrastructure, digitalization, global linkage is the focus of the current government. But not at the cost of, at the cost of manufacturing. We have realized what is India's potential or what is greatness during the, what do you call it? Yeah, the Corona time, because we are highly dependent on China. What you call it, chips or semiconductors, which you are importing from China. We have realized late what India is, where India went wrong in terms of manufacturing. That is a good lesson. In fact, that's a good experience and lesson for India. Should we, have too much of, dependent on countries like China and Pakistan ultimately? I think good lesson, good experience for us. Sir, in fact, your session, you have taken 3 general kal, aaj aur kal, like past, present, and the future kind of stuff. Very interesting. And though you said more privatization of banks mainly, maybe, the current industrialists, the business people taking advantage. Today, if you look at NPAs, whose money it is, there should be some capital punishments, not this Insolvency Act, or you ask for a bid to, will you buy this factory and all that, by the time you make it, what is scrap. There should be some kind of a capital punishments itself. Otherwise, your NPS will continue to be there. People leave India and go and take a shelter, some other countries happily enjoying their life. I mean, not to name anybody, but that is this current scenario of the, it's not the question of whether we are protecting them or, whatever you call it. It all depends ultimately the systems and processes in place. Whether today, Vajpayee, tomorrow, somebody else. Let's not go by the, like in any organization, works on systems and process, not by the individuals. I mean, like we talk about ISO standards, we talk about quality standards. I mean, this is what it goes. And really, Sarathi Garu, I think it's one of the best sessions we had. And
Thank you so much, sir.
We didn't know when we were going through your first slide, we have started somewhere in the 16th century or 17th century, where we are today. Like that, we were going to the British rule to East India Company and all that he spoke. That is good, really, and enlightenment of the Somali current generation. Where are you today? Where you will be heading to? And really, I thank Sarathi Garu, and I thank our Krishna Prasad Garu for getting
My pleasure, sir. My pleasure.
Faculty. You are very steady. Like, I'm telling you, nothing in a hurry. You are very steady in your approach, the way you speak, modulation, and all that. Ultimately, the whole objective of the faculty is to reach the hearts.
Yeah.
Reach is more important.
Yeah.
Then the facts and figures, how do you really reach and make them motivated, make them appreciated. And I thank Prasad Garu and Rama
Yes.
Pursi Garu, in fact, asked for some information from you. And Mandava Rajesh Rao Garu, of course, our G. Murli Krishna Raju, GM Raju, normally asked. Today is very, very, modest, because of the time constraint could be. He's very modest today. Otherwise, he will come out with lots. And Rishi Reddy Garu and Raju Kumagaru, Vemuri Garu and Pani Prabhakar Garu. Thanking everybody for attending it and participating in the session. Praveen Kuchipudi Garu from Tenali. In fact, this is how we get to know each other, sir.
Yeah, that's true.
I think this is already over feedback, my dear. Still, some people are giving is well and good. And we look forward from you, sir, different sessions in a different perspectives.
Sure, sir.
And HMA always looking forward to people like enlightened people like you too. Though we call Hyderabad Management Association, always tell people, let there be the management word also remain. Should not be more of an academic or something like that. I always feel that. And I don't know if Vice President is there. Not there. Okay. Thanks once again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It's my pleasure to interact with you all. And in fact, I have two classmates of mine. We have joined.
Okay,
Hi,
great. Yeah.
I take the liberty to greet them. Hi, Praveen. It's good. Nice to see you for a long time. Praveen Kuchipudi.
Oh, Praveen, that's what Tenali man. Okay.
And also Samunatha.
Thank you,
Yes,
Sarathi Garu. Excellent presentation, sir. Fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure. I
Great,
take your
sir.
leave.
Thanks once again.
Thank you.
Karthik.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for your time.
Can I request everyone to take the poll, please? Not taken anyone.
What?
Poll has been not taken, sir. Shekhar, sir.
Oh, that's okay.
I'll wait for a minute. And once
Then close it. Close it.
Okay. Request everyone to take the poll, please.
Sarathi means he leads from the front, sir. He's a Sarathi, gives direction. He leads from the front. And really, interesting personality.
Yeah.
Thank you, Krishna Prasad Garu. But just a word of caution on the timing also, you need to equally.
You're right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Sir, I'm leaving, sir. I think I given it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Closing.
Okay. Thanks, Karthik.
Thank you.